Bandidos, this is the Pestilence Reborn, hitting higher than it ever has. I'm clocking in ticks at almost 2.8 million, and that's before the 20% weapon damage bonus we're getting from the holster. This is a nasty DPS build, and you're gonna love it. Let's get into it.
Piece of shit wristwatch.
The Pestilence got a buff with the Season 2 rework. And so it is faster than ever with a 935 base RPM. It's a beast. Plague of the Outcast. And in case you're new around here, hits apply a debuff dealing 100% weapon damage over 10 seconds. This stacks up to 50 times whenever an enemy dies with this debuff. 100% of the stacks are transferred to a nearby enemy within 25 meters. So just to kind of give you an idea of where things were and where things are now, really strong Plague of the Outcast build that was super glassy was putting out ticks at about 1.75 or so, up to 1.8 million, give or take, and that was considered a really strong Pestilence with glass cannon, no armor, and lower DPS. The build I bring you today is putting out somewhere north of 2.8 million per tick, and it's not a glass cannon. We have 2 blue cores at 1.1 million in armor, armor on kill, and bonus armor, and even better DPS. And how am I doing that? Well, one of the ways is I'm using the new gear that was provided to us with Season 2, and that is the Virtuoso set along with the Centurion Scabbard holster. And the modifiers are giving us even more amplified damage on top of that. And so we're playing into that as well. And it's fantastic, fabulous. The Pestilence is never felt better. Let me walk you through the build real quickly. We'll do a little testing range work, and then I'll walk you through the modifiers. Virtuoso, I didn't think I was going to like this gear set, by the way. It's giving us 15% weapon handling and 15% magazine size. So for an LMG of this caliber, that's awesome. And then we're getting 15% weapon damage. So Virtuoso is awesome for weapons or builds that aren't super efficient with crits, and the Pestilence is one of those. For one, the Plague of the Outcast, its damage builds off of weapon damage and similar things like amp damage and total weapon damage and increased weapon damage. So we want lots of that stuff, but crits won't apply to the Plague of Outcast. Although Negotiators and Ongoing Directive can be a nice synergy, the status effects, Negotiators Dilemma's talent, which is crit based, is not actually bringing any benefit to the Pestilence itself, where the talent on Virtuoso, Symphony, is bringing benefit directly to the Plague of the Outcast because it's weapon damage. And same with some of the modifiers, they're bringing in more weapon damage and amplified damage, all contributing to these ridiculously high numbers. I mean, just look, the Pestilence doesn't even have crit mods on it. We have rate of fire, stability, and accuracy. And as far as the core attributes go, we have LMG damage, damage to targets out of cover, and damage to armor. By the way, I have 12% weapon damage expertise on this weapon. Okay, and one of the reasons why I didn't think I was gonna like this is because look at this damn description. It just hurts my head just looking at it. They have a lot of details here, but the concept is quite simple. So basically, it's 2 ranges. Inside 25 meters, over 25 meters. Now, we're just gonna focus on the LMG because that's what we're using. So when you're killing an enemy further than 25 meters, you're going to get 20% weapon damage and 25% bonus armor for 15 seconds. That's really cool. Killing an enemy within 25 meters will provide 20% weapon damage and 30% headshot damage for 15 seconds. That's simple. No matter what distance we kill enemies in, we're going to get 20% weapon damage. And then it's the bonuses that are going to change. So we'll get bonus armor and headshot damage flip-flopping depending on the distance. Okay, there's more to it though. So intermittently killing enemies from both ranges. So that means kill a short range enemy, kill a long range enemy. So inside 25, over 25 is going to build up stacks. At 4 stacks, all bonuses are multiplied by 2. So we're going to go from 20% to 40% damage, and then they're going to be triggered at the same time for 15 seconds. And then because they're both kicking in at the same time, 40 is going to turn into 80. But what's also cool, it's not just the damage that's doubled, it's also the bonus armor for 15 seconds and the headshot damage. Everything's just doubled and everything's active at the same time. All the bonuses. And then you're not able to stack while you have this going. So you don't really need to keep track of anything. You're really killing too much to try to micromanage this. For this build, it's fabulous. because we have negotiators and we have ongoing directive, and those are pretty cool too, and true patriot. But the damage bonus from this just makes things go crazy, and it's great. So you don't have to think about it. The Plague of the Outcast is going to help kill enemies at both of those distances. So the plague kills count towards the buff, as well as killing tech count towards the buffs. And then I have weapon damage, and I'm just loading crits on everything. I decided to go for the chest because it's gonna double the weapon damage of Symphony. So all those 20s we talked about turn to 40s, and then the 40s turn into 80s, which eventually turns into 160 when we have the intermittent killing thing going. So that's really, really high. And this is transferring to the ticks. The best way for me to demonstrate this is to get the stacks rolling over here on this group of guys. And then what I'll do is I'll kill an enemy that's beyond 25 meters. And then you'll see the stacks on the guys way over here make a big jump up. And there you go. All right, so for the chest, I got armor and crit chance and crit damage. Run as much armor as you feel like. I felt like 1.1 to 1.3 was pretty good on this build. Because I don't have crazy high bonus armor delivery, I decided not to overdo it on the armor. So I have weapon damage and crit damage on the gloves. And then finally the knees, weapon damage, crit damage. For the backpack, I'm running the backbone, and I have armor on it with crit damage and crit chance. You could probably go into countdown to farm this if you needed it, but it has perfectly unstoppable force. This is really good for either high performers in group or those that are playing solo. Killing an enemy increases total weapon damage by 7% for 15 seconds, stacked up to 5 times. So that's 35% total weapon damage. Vigilance gives you 25%, but it can be disabled, where this one can't, and it's pretty easy to maintain, especially for solo PvE. If you're playing in group, you might be better off with Vigilance or Composure or just whatever, but if you're a high performer in group, this can still work. I am running Centurion Scabbard. This is a pretty darn good holster. So weapon damage, weapon handling, and crit chance. So for the Pestilence, really both options, 1 or 2, are great. But because of the gear set bonuses, which is weapon handling and mag size, and Gunner gives you more weapon handling, and then we have weapon handling here as a sub attribute, I didn't feel like I really needed to play into the auto mag refill thing, but that's really cool too if you want to. It's really easy. All you have to do is swap to your pistol and then swap back and you'll have a full mag. Otherwise, what I do is I just rotate weapons and quickly pick up some 20% rate of fire and 20% weapon damage. And that 20% weapon damage is also going to boost your ticks, which is why I'm more interested in it. But the rate of fire on this thing just gets crazy high and it's pretty cool. And it makes the weapon feel really good. I'm running the decoy, but be careful with this because when you throw out your decoy, it can make the talent for the scabbard change, and it's kind of annoying, I gotta say. But the decoy is really important right now because there's status effects out there, and if you get hit by one of those shock bullets, it just sucks. And then we have the fixer drone. And don't forget to run Gunner for 10% armor on kill. Now we have the modifiers. You can find the modifiers by clicking on this device, and you have your global modifier, your active modifier, and your passive modifiers. And then I created this document to help explain what we're working with here. For the global modifier, we're basically playing at all ranges, but I lock in for the long range to get the greatest amplified damage to everything that we're doing, both the crits from the gun and the ticks. The active modifier we're using is all out. This is what allows me to lock in that range. And once it's activated, we're gonna get an increase of 5% weapon damage up to 300% weapon damage. And this lasts 50 seconds, and each kill extends its duration for a maximum of an additional 50 seconds. And then the cooldown is also 50 seconds. And you don't have to use a special weapon for long range because of your weapon handling and how hard this thing hits. It's really easy to activate your long range. Just start shooting. Once you get a couple of hits into an enemy that's in the red range, then activate this modifier. For me, I press up on the D-pad, and then you have 10 seconds to finish off that enemy. When he dies, it's locked in. For passive modifiers, so we're going to be using by the teeth. and this one kicks in. We have that long range locked in. This is going to give us 250% more damage, but you're going to want to go for the body to maintain this. If you accidentally hit a shot in the head, which is going to happen all the time, it's not a big deal because it stacks up really fast, only a couple of shots. And at your RPMs, it's no problem. And this is mega. And just so you know, passive modifiers, they all work even if your active modifier is on cooldown. And then I'm using persistence. That's giving us 20% reload speed when we're locked in. Then otherwise we're getting accuracy and movement speed, which are all very nice. But because we're locking into long range for the highest damage, that's giving us reload speed. Again, it's just not that important that we use the holster's auto reload feature, but do whatever you feel like is best for your gameplay style. I'm using retribution here. So shooting enemies inside medium range builds up to 100 stacks. For every stack you gain, 0.5% critical hit chance. So this is up to 50% crit chance. And then it cycles is what happens. It's actually pretty cool. One strategy you can play into is build up some crit stacks, then lock in your long range, and it'll hold the crit chance meter. We'll just build it up there just for demonstrations. And then I can lock in at long range and then continue to shoot enemies at any range, including medium range, and my crit chance holds at that value. So it's a pretty cool way to maintain really high crit chance. It only cycles if I'm shooting a target at the medium range. And that's one of the reasons why I'm running it. For stats, notice it says I have 60% crit chance and 116% crit hit damage. And that's because of that modifier called retribution. So it's really unique, pretty snazzy. Okay, so I just took retribution off. So this is the crit chance and crit damage I have on the build without retribution. In any case, the time to kill on the build is so ridiculously high because there's so many details, it can seem overwhelming. So there's 3 things you want to prioritize when using this build. One is rotating in your holster because that additional RPM is awesome, or the free reload is awesome. The other thing is when you can lock in that long range using your active modifier. That's just going to keep you at a real high damage level. And otherwise, I encourage you to play actually a little deeper with this build. The handling is amazing, and so is the damage at range. When you have your active modifier locked in, then yes, push and play a little bit more aggressive. But when you're on cooldown, play a little bit deeper and just watch the enemies melt. I think you're really going to enjoy this build. Have fun out there. Thank you for hanging out with me today. My name is Tuxedo Bandido. That's Tito Bandido.
What's crack-a-lackin'?
This was another episode of The Division 2. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to ensure you don't miss out on the fantastic experiences waiting for you in The Division 2. And if you like builds like this, check out the recommended build video I have here for you. If you have anything you want to see covered, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And thank you to all the channel members and donors who make everything possible. Tux Nation wouldn't be without you.
When you buy a game from Ubisoft, enter the creator code Tuxedo Bandido to support the channel. Easy peasy. Now maybe this cheapskate can afford to sign me up for that dating app I've had my eyes on.
Follow me.
I get it.